Hey folks, this is Sizer in Post, just a few weeks after the original recording of this panel. And every time I think I've made every mistake that you can make with OBS Studio, I find another way to screw it up. And this time, about the first 9 minutes of the video have the guests with their faces frozen, in between expressions. Not a good way to present your panel. So I went ahead and replaced the first 9 minutes with the logo. I hope you'll stick around after those 9 minutes to hear what they have to say, because we have a really cool one for you today about the state of the indie TTRPG scene. Enjoy. Welcome to another great episode of Round the Table. Thank you everyone for coming today. We have a really interesting topic with a lot of really cool guests. We're talking about the current state of the indie TTRPG scene. Let's start by, I'm Sizer, he, him. I am the creator of Skies of Fortune, the Sky Pirate RPG, an indie TTRPG. So we have a lot of indie creators here with us today. Let's start with Adrian.
Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm he, him. I am the lead designer, I guess, of Koboa, and it's nice to be here.
Thank you.
Koboa is a South American setting that we are making for 5e, Black Flag, etc.
Cool. Thank you for coming back to the show. All right, and Al Spader.
Hello, Al Spader, he, him. I am a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures and Octon Cthulhu, and I've also published two of my own indie games. The Sentience role-playing game just finished its Kickstarter fulfillment last week, and I've also created my own game system and role-playing game called Once Upon, a storybook role-playing game.
Cool. Thank you for being here, Al. All right, Anya.
Hi, my name is Anya. My pronouns are she, her, and I am Lalion Publishing. I do a ton of games, including, I just got this in yesterday, Sail the Oceans Queer, Gay Magical Pirates.
Cool.
I do a mix of cute, fluffy animal games and psychological horror and a lot of weird things in between.
Cool. All right, well, thank you for coming back.
Yeah.
All right, and we have Professor Evan Torner.
Hi, I'm Evan Torner. I co-founded the journal Analog Game Studies and the contest, the Golden Cobra Challenge. I've been part of the indie scene, I would say, since the mid-2000s, and was part of the sort of, I guess I was in the second Apocalypse World campaign, among other things. So I've been part of the scene that led up to, and then I was part of the aftermath of what we call now PBTA, powered by the apocalypse. And I also have been in the LARP scene for 25 years, and I've been very happy to talk to death about live action role play. Hello.
Thank you for being here. And Kimi Hughes.
Hi, I'm Kimi, she, her. I run and own Golden Lasso Games, which has been making indie, very, very indie TTRPGs since around 2018. I also own and run the Happy Jacks RPG Podcast Network, where we do a weekly advice show where we spotlight indie designers every month, and then do actual plays in a bunch of different weird systems.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here. So let's dive right into our topic today, and I'm going to ask a very serious question to begin with, okay? The question is the following. Is being indie cool?
Being indie's the best.
Okay, I'm not going to leave those on. But, I kind of enjoy it. But let's start with just defining what that even means, okay? Professor Torner, you said that you had some ideas of what it actually means to be independent, and maybe what the opposite of being independent would be. Or
yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah.
I'm sure all the other guests can come up with what the alternative is, so I'll state the positive case, which is an indie tabletop RPG creator is a creator who owns the rights to the next printing of their game. That's a very strict definition. They're the person who already can say, yes, go ahead with the next printing of the game. It's not owned by some company or some holding capacity. It's owned by you, the creator of the game. And that really is my definition. Everything else is details. One is what we call the aesthetic dimension, where you look at certain characteristics of a game and say that is or isn't indie. That's very fuzzy because sometimes really mainstream publishers can go indie, and sometimes very indie publishers can put out beautiful products that resemble mainstream games. And then on the other hand, there's the moral dimension or discursive dimension where people get really into the weeds of, is this authentically indie or not? Or if you're a real indie creator, here's your moral stance. So that's but fundamentally it's about, does the creator own the rights to this thing that we would call an indie tabletop RPG?
Okay.
I'm fascinated by that because that's definitely not a direction I would have expected you to go, but I agree with that. Absolutely. I get to choose when I print new copies of my games.
Yeah.
So nice and unambiguous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if say that I was to go out there, get a staff, but I was like the sole stockholder of the IP, would I still be indie or?
That would be a creator-run outfit, and we have classic examples of that with like video games like Sid Meier and Civilization, and those tend to be toxic, Sizer. I'm sorry to say, most of the time when the creator like owns everything but has their like bevy of employees, it doesn't really work out too well for anyone in that equation. So typically, then a company is formed, and then you graduate from what we call indie to what we call second tier. So that would be Evil Hat, Magpie Games, Atlas Games, Chaosium. Most of what we would consider to be the gaming industry is at second tier, beyond then the behemoths of Hasbro and Asmodee.
Cool.
Yeah, do you think that being corporate has a lot to do with not being indie?
No, not being indie is do I employ another person who is not me?
Mm-hmm.
If I do, then I'm at second tier, because at that point now you have another human being who is under your employ, and you have to deal with salary, health insurance, all of the benefits, this entire range. And the moment you cross that threshold, obviously you're going to pay people for their artwork or whatever, but that moment that you have an employee that's not you, congratulations, you're really in the gaming industry, man. And that's most of us aren't there or will never be there.
So wait a minute. Are you telling me that because I have another guy who's working on my lore that I'm sharing profit with, that means I'm not an indie?
No. You're both indie. Good job.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're
Indie collaboration.
Indie collaboration. Because are you making like a lot of money off that?
We're not making. Well, we haven't produced anything yet. So.
Okay.
Well, we haven't put it out. We're producing.
Indie
We're
answer
working.
right there.
We're making, but it's not out yet.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, you naturally are a game designer. So if you're worried about whether or not you are a game designer, yes, you are. And if you're worried about being a second tier or not, you probably aren't.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I wanted to ask Al specifically. I mean, you worked for Modifius, right? So,
yes.
Like, what have you seen as like? Have you noticed a big difference between working for like? I guess that would be a second tier one versus working on your own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so Modifius, they have project managers, and the project managers typically imagine what the outline's going to look like for the product, and then they bring in freelancers to do the art and the writing and the editing and the layout. So, like, having that already organized for you is actually a breath of fresh air, because having had to do all of that for Sentience, it was I mean, I was essentially the project manager, right? I wrote half the book, and then I had 8 other writers come in, 3 different editors and whatnot. So like managing that on my own was really exhausting. Now, there's a flip side to this too, right? There are some writers out there that will just produce a book on their own. They might use clip art or whatever public domain art they can find, and that is probably a wonderful experience because you've got nobody else around you to worry about. My personal opinion, I find myself a lot more successful in what I produce when I'm working with other people.
Cool. That's a bit of like the little Gygax like there. I think he preferred it when he had other people to work with. Whether or not they preferred to be working with him was another question sometimes, I think. But
I think we all have different ideas and we have different points of view. And I think it's really good to capture points of view in a product, right?
Yeah.
Being a cis white male, that is, very much what people would consider a normal gamer. I have a specific point of view, right? So if I can bring on people of color or, people from the queer community to help me with my product, that's just spectacular for me. And I don't know if that's embedded in me through writing Star Trek, where infinite diversity and infinite combinations is a thing that drives it, or what. But that's something that I want to continue with when I'm producing my own indie content.
Absolutely, and that's why we often talk about sensitivity readers for those of us who are like for me, like you, who's a white cis dude. Having those other points of view is important. Cool. Anybody else having that experience where you're getting to work with a group, and like with your TTRPG, or is it just kind of you and a keyboard?
So not for these, but I have a crowdfunding campaign that I am currently the project manager for that will be announced soon. That is coming out in October. The crowdfunding campaign itself, but I find myself in charge of at least 15 people.
Oh wow.
We'll see. That is a wide stretch from just having one or two other people on my projects, and now I have all of these artists and writers and a layout designer and sensitivity readers and the whole shebang, because I want to do it right.
But still no employees that you hand full salary to, so you are still indie. Congratulations.
I wanted to
Go ahead,
Adrian.
Oh, I was gonna say, Kaboa is we were actually just laying out one of the appendices. We're putting in a bio and a picture of everyone who has contributed to the project, and we found there were 53 bios.
Oh wow.
Involved between artists and illustrators and stuff. We tried really hard to get a wide breadth of all of South America, so we had a lot of people contributing. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I got another question to sort of throw to Evan first, and for the rest of us to kind of riff off of. So looking at TTRPGs, or maybe tabletop games historically, how would you characterize the current era, and how do indie games fit into that?
Gosh, the current era is just this plenitude of games that is so frustrating because you can't play them all. I just feel like there's a deluge of content out there that is really, really enviable compared with what we saw in, say, the 1970s or 1980s. I really nailed down the first indie tabletop RPGs would be Bunnies and Burrows, Tunnels and Trolls, and then What Price Glory. And I always think One Price Glory from 1978 because that's really the creators stapled the thing and hands distributed it and had the whole completely punk rock attitude. And now the tools are all available to just about everybody all around the world to jump in and try what we used to call in the 80s desktop publishing. And now it's, of course, putting together a PDF or putting together even a print that then other people can share and enjoy. And I think, what's really, really important is that an indie creator find those 50 people who will actually play their game and then cling to them for the rest of their lives. because there's going to be gossip and weird stuff, and your crowd will wax and it'll wane, and attention will steer one way or another. But those 50 people, they have your back. They're going to play your stuff. They're going to enjoy it. Design for them, and that's amazing. But now we've got, say, 5,000, 10,000 games that are designed for those 50 people, and that's it's daunting, but also wonderful. So I would like to say that right now there are too many games, and I can't name or read them all. And gosh, that is so wonderful.
Yes.
There's something for everyone, no matter what.
Yeah, I think the something for everyone is something really to click in with, because it seems that we're in an era of hyper focused game, like especially narrative games. Every game is really like locking into a very specific niche. You are a small family who owns a bed and breakfast that are doing this specific thing. You are a bunch of women who are also werewolves. No one else can be like, there's just like these very locked in narratives that are telling and having players experience things on a such a personal level. It's almost like having a conversation, where I feel like we've come away from like past eras of, like, I love like Traveler, for example, great game, great system. In that era of games, you were trying to make a big game that people could play a bunch of different stories in. There wasn't like a specific narrative necessarily. There was like a tone. So we had like D&D and Traveler and GURPS and all those things that were meant to be as generic as possible. And it seems like the pendulum has swung like completely the opposite direction. And it's like, all right, you are all in this same room for the entire thing. Your characters don't leave this small room, and it is haunted and smells of vanilla or whatever it is like the indie designer wants. It's just so niche, and I love that. I think it's really beautiful, and it really feels like a specific like conversation between the creator and the people who are playing the game.
Yeah.
From a designer point of view, I was always told, like, you know, if you want to be a designer to do your own thing, there's basically 3 ways that you can go about it, right? You can get an IP, which it seems like, you know, most major IPs have already been swallowed up by different companies already. You could do something extremely unique, right? You could do like 10 Candles, right? That will set you apart. But it's really, really hard to do that. And the third thing is you use a familiar system, right? And a lot of these indie systems, like you know, we mentioned PBTA earlier. You know, we've got Morkborg, we've got a lot of these systems that exist now that are completely free use for anybody to use on their games, that have really big communities following them. I mean, you see, you slap Morkborg on a book and throw it on Kickstarter, you already have a bunch of backers, right? We saw that with Pirate Borg, we saw it you know, with Chainsaw. I saw the ads for Raptor Ruckus this morning, like, and like they're gonna do great because they already have a little bit of a built-in community. So
yeah.
All right. Hello to our 6th guest there today.
Yeah.
my future nerd son. Yes.
Very cool.
I want to add that in addition to using these kind of open source SRDs for our community, especially in the 2000s and 2010s, and our community produced things like Dread and Apocalypse World and Steelway Jordan, is to always ask yourself, you ask yourself, what would I do if I could do this in a game, or how would I get that feeling? And or even being more daring, saying, I bet I could do this. I bet I could get the players to choose the worst possible outcome if I can bribe them with this thing. Or I bet we can play this extremely obscure historical situation with characters that will not be readily, you know, identifiable, you know, or be kind of part of the lexicon of normal gamers or your normal audience, and I'll bet I can get that to work. And those dares, that kind of experimentalism, is really important in driving that. It's not just with an audience, but it's with yourself. And really saying, how can I convincingly make this design happen?
Yeah, and with that, I would say also thinking about what system you want to use, or if you want to make up your own, because I always start with the concept of what idea do I have for this game, and then I look for the SRD that makes the most sense for that concept, or I make something up on my own. I've done a mixture of both.
Yeah, there's plenty of options whether you want to make something out of whole cloth or want to just you know, work with something existing, and you know, there's business reasons to do that either way as well, business and creative reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so here's a question about the indie TTRPG space as it is. Would you consider the current wave of indies, let's say anything in the let's call it current wave, anything since like Kickstarter really became a thing, right? What do you consider to be a kind of movement?
I would say the solo TTRPG sphere has exploded. Just there's so many more options available than there used to be. Like in college, I don't remember there being any, and this was like late to like 2010-ish, that range. I don't remember there being very many solo games.
Yeah, I don't recall ever even like hearing about a solo
Yeah.
game when I was in college in like 2000 to 2004, you know.
Yeah. But
I do.
I think since about 5 or 6 years ago, I don't know, maybe someone else would have a better idea. It's just gotten so much bigger since then.
And that definitely bloomed during COVID 100%. Like there
Mhm.
were some small ones before then, but it really
Yeah.
just got picked up in popularity because people were looking for them, but also people were writing them, I think, in that creative time where we were all alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the like there's a couple that I think of that are really big, and that is the inclusion and expectation of safety mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
For people sitting around the table, right? You know, whether it's the X card, whether it's lines and veils, or whatever system that
Mhm.
you are using, most indie games have some call out of that in their
Mhm.
books, which I think is extremely appropriate, especially at conventions and things like that.
Oh,
And the
definitely.
second is narrative mechanics that have to do with words and less with numbers, right?
Yeah.
We see words on the page actually carrying meaning now and carrying
Mhm.
mechanics. When you use them, when you talk about them, when you say your quote, you get a bonus, right? Or like things like that. And I think that's been something that has been blossoming over the last 5 to 7 years as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think there's been a big change in like who is being represented in games
Yeah.
too, right? Um like I don't can I point at Kobola for this, Adrian? You know, because obviously we talked a little bit on the last time you were on about like the very poor attempts to make a South American RPG before. And then you came along and your team came along and kind of made a good one. So
Well, I hope it's a good one. We haven't
yeah.
fully released it yet, but
Well, I was a
I think
backer, so I'm looking forward to it.
that's exciting.
big same. I think another movement we've seen is the moving away from having a GM and coming up with
Oh,
mechanics
yeah.
that spread out the power and kind of the narrative decisions to different players, or having like there's just so many different mechanics for that. But I think GM-less games is something that we've also
Mhm.
seen this explosion in.
I think
Gotcha.
even if there is a GM, there's been a lot of movement in like giving non-GM players agency over the story outside
Yeah.
the characters too.
Yeah,
Yeah, making
absolutely.
it much more collaborative and less the GM is God in this world. Like,
W-
I love being able to collaborate with people in these TTRPGs now.
Has anybody had a look at Daggerheart yet? I've not, but I've heard that this is kind
I
of one of the things that
haven't.
it does. A little bit?
I haven't gotten a chance
Yeah,
yet, but I
okay.
really want to. My friends have told me that I'd love it. I do play run Candela Obscura. It's the major one that I write as well. And that one, my Pro GM table that I run is like extremely collaborative in the story that we're telling.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
and I do say that a lot of this is all material from the 2000s, 2010s, and have now
Mhm.
finally made it into more mainstream titles. When again we were running them for much smaller groups of people. My collection is card based. games, that card-based storytelling games. I just held up Price of Coal as an example. But one of the reasons why we switched to cards, and again, we're going to move away from that if the China tariffs thing continue. But the cards, in theory, allow you to not deal with books, and you're often in the convention space when running these sorts of things. So then now you can literally put out all the fiction and make it comprehensible, like a Magic the Gathering game, before all the players as you narrate. It's just one way of doing it. But then there's also the opposite, which is developments in virtual tabletop, also for indie spaces, as well as the phenomenon of character keepers, which allow us to jump onto a Google Doc or a Google Sheets, or sorry, not to any sort of shared Excel-esque spreadsheet that has been designed for your character, and then you now digitally have a shared home for your material that then, especially if you're doing a game over Discord or another platform, you're able to then collaborate like that, and it's all kind of community built. A lot of these mechanisms, it's not corporate. It's built by individuals or player groups wanting to have a better experience in the virtual realm.
Yeah. VTTs have really made it so that you can meet more people, get more experiences out there. Like if you were like the one person in your small town that wants to play D&D and no one else is around to do it with, or Shadowrun or whatever, now you can do it. So that's been great. So I think we already covered that one. Who's up for a little bit of irresponsible speculation here?
I'm curious what this means.
Okay. We're going to talk about a little bit of recent TTRPG news and what it might mean for all of us. So I'm just going to read this out quick. In the last few months, there have been some changes with big players on the TTRPG scene. Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins left Wizards of the Coast for Darrington. Is it Darrington or Darrington?
Yeah, Darrington Press.
White Wolf retrieved the World of Darkness IP, and Jeff Lanzillo also left Wizards of the Coast to be creative director there. So, first of all, any thoughts on these personnel shifts? And do I need to say who these people are? Do we all know who they are? No. Okay.
I know who they are.
I know the names, but I don't know much beyond that.
I'll list what they're known for, their accomplishments here. So Jeremy Crawford, designer at WotC since 2005, lead designer of the 2024 Player's Handbook, lead designer of Curse of Strahd, Gaming Icon Award, that's GAY Main Icon Award in 2024. Chris Perkins, designer at WotC since 1997, creative director on 2024 Dungeons Master's Guide, lead story designer of Curse of Strahd, DM of Acquisitions Inc. at PAX until 2018. And Jess Lanzillo was at WotC for 8 years, and the positions she'd held include creative lead for Magic the Gathering, chief of staff, and vice president. So
some thoughts.
Yeah, big moves there. People seem to be moving away from Wizards of the Coast to smaller companies. At least some of their major talent people have been there for decades. Any particular thoughts on what if this suggests anything? I don't know.
Well,
people getting sick of corporates?
Maybe, I suppose so.
I think this is actually.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is actually more indicative of at least word on the street from what I've heard, reorganizing at Wizards of the Coast. They are not making a lot of money with actual books. They're making a lot more money with the brand and the lifestyle brand that is D&D. They're switching to that. The word is that they're moving to more of a franchise model with Dungeons and Dragons, where they're going to basically license out the IP to smaller publishing houses. And that's my guess based on Ivan, who was running Darrington Press. He's from Hunters Entertainment, taking leave from Darrington and going back to Hunters about the same time this switch happened. So it looks to me, at least based on these totally separate movements that are totally maybe coincidental, so I might be wrong, but it seems to me that Darrington Press is planning on making some D&D content. They have the most well-known D&D IP out there right now, maybe under Eberron possibly, with Exandria and all the Critical Role stuff. Yeah. So why would they not take that in house? And they are still a new publishing entity, so they have been kind of they've hit a couple snags with like their production timelines and things like that. And it seems to me that they're bringing in people who are experts in the D&D IP and experts at planning, having a release every year of a book with like no break in that timeline.
That's interesting. So that would almost, I guess you would think that they would be trying to promote Daggerheart more because that's what they're using on Critical Role, isn't it? Oh, it's not. They're not using that.
No, they've been using D&D for the past 3 campaigns for the past 10 years, but they've started shifting over to doing miniseries of Candela Obscura and now of Daggerheart as well. I think that the current, I think it's a miniseries that they're doing is Daggerheart based. So there's that. But yeah, it's been largely D&D.
Yeah, their plan, I don't know about the next main campaign. I don't know if they've made an announcement, but monetarily, it would make the most, and audience-wise, it would make the most sense for them to retain their current viewers and their fan base by playing the same game that they've been playing. And I mean, even Free League Publishing, like, they are so well known. They did that amazing One Ring release, which I am a huge fan of. But then they also, since they had the IP for Lord of the Rings, made a 5e, companion. That's just where so much of the money is. Like Free League has said, we love this stuff we made, but monetarily, we will never make something again that we don't also make something that works with 5e, just because that's where so much of the audience and the buying power is. Excuse me.
Yeah, because everyone knows the system. Everyone knows the system. Like, if you are playing a Lord of the Rings game in 5e, you know what the mechanics are going to be. Yeah. Like, it is like the largest system out there.
For sure. And I think the reason I kind of thought they were going to be going with Daggerheart, and I think a lot of people thought that, was just because that was first of all, one of their in-house systems, fantasy systems, sort of meant for, seems like it's meant for like actors more than anything. But anyway, that was my pleb, my total pleb opinion on that one. But
that might have been the initial. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk about you.
No, go ahead. Please do.
That might have been the initial like intent with it. But but D&D and Wizards of the Coast has gone through so many structural changes since they started the creation of Darrington Press that it not have been like even in their heads that they would be able to take over publication of Exandria D&D stuff when they started the whole Daggerheart, Candle Obscura like process, because that's been many years in the making. So it might be something that suddenly now they're like, oh, we can reclaim the D&D portion of this IP, which is very beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Without, and be in charge of it ourselves, which they're kind of reclaiming what's theirs.
Okay. Well, Kimi, it seems you have your ear to the ground on this one, so thank you for your insights. That's interesting.
I do want to just say this is all like kind of rumor and hearsay and like assumptions based on the timing of different movements too. So I could be completely wrong, and if it is, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of like coincidences.
It makes a lot of sense,
And this is the irresponsible speculation segment, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If I could be irresponsible for a moment.
Yeah.
I think that we are going to see a seismic shift in gaming over the next year with the Stormlight Archive finally becoming widely available to everyone. I do believe that like if those gentlemen leaving WotC didn't want to support D&D and wanted to support a more indie type group, I think that like there could be a really big wave of non D&D stuff moving forward with Daggerheart and with the Stormlight Archive role-playing game, which is still, admittedly, there's a lot of 5e still in it. But I think that Kickstarter was no joke. I think they just had a third round of hiring production, at Brotherwise. So like, I don't know. I think that like in the next year or two, we're going to see a lot. And I do think that there is a little bit of fatigue on Dungeons and Dragons, right? I don't sell the 70 books that I used to at my shop. I'm lucky if I can sell 10 or 12 when a new book drops. So I think that there is the gaming industry is looking for something else. And I think that, indie games, or maybe these ones that are just starting to step up to the next level, might be that thing.
I have a question about that. How much of that do you think is due to D&D becoming less popular, or due to it becoming really readily available at home in D&D Beyond and digital purchases?
So I do think that
Or
D&D
maybe
Beyond
fragmentation.
has
I was
really
gonna say fragmentation. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, go say it.
I was gonna ask, or how much of that is fragmentation between like 2014 and 2024 players, like in terms of adopting the new rule set?
I mean, I think that at my shop, the sales were down before 2024 drop. And I do think that some of it could be the D&D Beyond bit. I think that also in general, that I think there's a lot of expectation that GMs are the ones that spend all the money. Because there's very few player-facing things in a lot of these books that have been released. I'm a big believer that any book should have player-facing content and GM-facing content in it, so that you can appeal to the entire audience. And that's just my casual observation. I was hot and heavy into D&D 5e up until the pandemic. And then after that, I was like doing some soul searching as far as what I wanted as a gamer. And then also I was starting to get into producing my own games. And I'm like, well, where are we missing the mark here? And that was a big thing that I noticed, is a lot of the books were meant for GMs and not for players.
I do want to add, though, that I lived in the 1990s during the heyday of player-facing supplements. And I have to tell you that the player-facing supplements are like this book that you can hold up against your DM effectively. So I'm talking about the Complete Fighter's Handbook, the Complete Ninja's Handbook, and all these other things where effectively your DM's got their campaign over here in AD&D, of course, and then you, intrepid player, go to the hobby store, buy your Complete Fighter's Handbook, realize there's a class that gives you extra attacks per round, and then you say, can I make one of these? And now your DM has a choice. Are they going to draw a boundary in the ground against the player-facing materials, or do they trust, at the time, TSR to make something responsible? And if they chose the latter, they were not well advised, because now they've now let this content kind of into their game, and it often was imbalanced or sort of game breaking. So I think there are reasons for the shift to this much more module adventure based GM based content, but it's hurt hobby stores tremendously, because once we shifted over from a supplement heavy market where players could get their hands on supplements that were for them, now you've got this kind of weirder space where suddenly the DM has to order all the food and book the apartment and do all of the organizing logistics, and the players can just kind of be passive and not really acknowledge the fact that, of course, the DM paid $150 or $160 for these books, and that was their starting outlay. That the DM is holding up the sky basically, and that then then there's suddenly a complaint, where are all the DMs anymore? Well, that's why we made it suck. So we have to actually find a nice balance between player-facing materials that empower players, but do not, they're not open warfare on DMs, but then also, not everything is loaded onto the DMs. Of course, I advocate for GM lists and collaborative storytelling games as an answer, but to be honest, we don't have anywhere near the product or market share of any of this stuff. And so I'm sort of content with my own little corner in Games on Demand and other organizations I'm part of, where we just, run what we like with whom we like, and don't really care too much about what the majors are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do see some success stories, right? You look at Monster of the Week, for example, right? Each one of those books has had playbooks, and then it's had GM support, right? And if one book for $40 has both of those things, I think that's really intriguing, and like a way to help indie publishers, sell to the entire market instead of just the few and that are running the games.
And
and even with the second book, Tome of Mysteries, it still has more playbooks in it. and more things to help players. And it's not just all of the mysteries, which are amazingly wonderful and helpful, of course, but there's still player-facing content in there.
And I want to say that Monster of the Week was just a normal PBTA, like also on the Barf Fourth Apocalyptica forums. Like it was a normal PBTA product until actual play elevated it, right? It was played on a major show, and now it was just like when Fiasco was done on Will Wheaton's tabletop. Suddenly, this got elevated out of the pack, out of the normal run of us normal indie people into something special. Also happened with Alex Roberts for the Queen, although that's also an exceptional game. I mean, every single game I'm talking about is relatively exceptional, except for Monster of the Week, which I could just one of the others. And I thought, why isn't Sagas of the Icelanders getting this? Monster Heart should be getting way more attention than Monster of the Week. Like, come on, I love Monster of the Week, but it was just an okay design that I feel like got that attention and became elevated, and that's haunted me for a long time. Actually, its popularity. Maybe it's also because it's Shadow Buffy, and that's really important. That means also nailing the genre and the audience is going to be key to an indie success.
Yeah, that's a good point. Genre, right? That's one of the things that I think you also consider as far aside from just system, right? What I think TTRPGs, and so you can agree or disagree with this, are a very iterative media, right? You oftentimes will base your game off of something that has come before, whether it's a system, whether it's a setting. Why we have D&D obviously takes a lot from Tolkien and other period fantasists, and like we got Cyberpunk and Shadowrun coming out of the cyberpunk movements and things along those lines. So does anybody is that a thing that you've all have considered as you've gone on to make games? What genre you'd like to work in?
Well, for me, I have such a wide variety. I've already mentioned that, but I've kind of found 3 niches for myself with the cute, adorable animals, psychological horror, and then also just general fantasy. So like when people ask me, oh, do you like at conventions, oh, do you have something D&D, whatever? I'm like, well, you can be a potion maker's apprentice. That's what I have, and it's really popular. And then like if people want psychological horror, I have options for those. If you want to be a pug, I have an option for that. But I have ADHD, so I have lots of interests.
Yeah. Same. Hard same. Cool. Well, let's circle back to where I was going with that, irresponsible speculation. So here's a question that I think we have to sort of wrestle with as indie developers. So can we or is it kind of a zero-sum game for us when it comes to Hasbro and D&D? Does the weakening of the D&D brand, if it can be said to be done, is that help us? Is it good for indie devs if D&D is not doing as well as it might be?
I feel like yes and no. I feel like to some extent there are D&D players and then there are TTRPG players, but like those two circles don't entirely overlap, or maybe they don't even halfway overlap.
Gotcha. Now we've got a 7th guest behind you, Adrian.
I just saw the face appear.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Go ahead, Kimi.
Okay. I feel like D&D is like kind of both the same as what was just said, but I feel like it's an on-ramp for people who have no idea what a TTRPG is. Like 98% of the people I talk to in the hobby with just a lot of people started with D&D or became aware of D&D first.
Hilariously, I'm the outlier there.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the one exception is also like the vampire games, especially in the 90s, were an on-ramp for a lot of like femi players. But like generally D&D is the thing that most people see. It's like the Kleenex or the Xerox.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I play tabletop games. What's that? D&D. Oh, and they know what
Yeah.
that is. So I think it
100%.
brings people, I think it brings people into the hobby. The problem then is people who are playing that game who don't get curious about other systems. But I think it's
Yeah.
better, at least in my opinion, I think like high tides raise all ships. Like it's better for people to be in the hobby at all than to not be in the hobby. Because there's a chance someday they'll try another game or they'll be at the,
Yeah.
the shop, they'll be at Al's shop and be like, oh, what's this one on the shelf or whatever it is. So there's at least a chance that they'll try indie games if they were brought in by D&D.
And I've had plenty of players just as a pro GM, I've had plenty of players join my D&D games because that's what they know. And then they're like, oh, you have a Monster of the Week game because I do that. You have Serenity, all of these different things. I want to try that system out too. And then they try other systems.
Yeah, my primary job is as a teacher, right? And so D&D is basically the on-ramp for all of these kids, because if we aren't onboarding these kids, then when we get old and curmudgeon-y, there's not going to be any more TTRPG people, right? And so these kids can see D&D all over the internet, which is what they're very much focused on. And yeah, so if D&D goes away, we kind of lose that onboarding for kids. And I don't think we want that.
Gotcha. Adrian, you were saying something.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like it would feel better if it weren't so clear that Hasbro wants to keep D&D players in D&D. Like, I feel like obviously it helps their bottom line, like the whole making it into a franchise thing or making it into a lifestyle thing. It's all about keeping you in the D&D sphere so that you don't reach out and like see other things. So it kind of takes effort on our end to like tell people like, oh, have you checked out this other game? And they're like, oh, you can do that in D&D, and then it becomes this whole argument. Like, I feel like it would be easier if it were less of a competitive nature. I feel like with Hasbro, but obviously capitalism just doesn't allow for that.
Yeah. I think this is where games like Daggerheart and Kazmir and stuff are really going to be a huge boon to us, because they're going to be the first step away from D&D. People are going to come into the hobby because they heard of D&D, they saw it on, their TV show or whatever it was, and then they want to try it. So they try it and they're like, oh, okay, this is fun, but Matt Mercer made this game, so I'll try this one. And then that'll be the first step into, oh, I like this 2D12 mechanic, oh, I wonder, oh, this game has that too. Oh, they took this mechanic from PBTA. That's interesting. What's a PBTA game? Like, I feel like it's the more kind of like first stepping stones away from D&D to more indie stuff we can get. I feel like that's going to smooth the transition. Like their on-ramp to D&D should be smooth, and then their on-ramp away from D&D should be equally smooth and have nice steps and pavement for them to like leave that space, hopefully.
I see it from a cinema studies point of view, which is to say, you can ask yourself, how is Hollywood doing right now? They don't have nearly the output that they had in the golden era, but that's because the golden era ended due to television. And that then, now you've got all these different franchises that are just continuing to sort of make remakes of themselves. But then if you looked again, even at the golden era, a lot of these, even classic Westerns were just working directors and people making gold out of straw, more or less, out of something that was pretty staid and even dull by the 1950s, like a musical or a Western. And so when we look back at the golden era of Hollywood, we can just see working people working with what they had. And it's hard for me to say, oh, cinema is declining when there are more feature films made per year around the world than ever, by more countries than ever. And so half of our problem is just the awareness, especially in our SEO blindered times, of what's out there, of what is available, the different forms of expression, the different types of cinema, etc. And so what we really need, and we are getting actually to some degree through Dimension 20 and others, is are people who are the Martin Scorsese's of the tabletop RPG universe, who are successful but are also saying, look what's out there. It's not just Dungeons and Dragons. There's all kinds of material out there, and I would just say Hasbro just keeps making bad decisions, but we're not really dependent on Hasbro. Our medium is just rules for talking to each other. So let's be real. Let's jump into rules for talking to each other rather than some sort of licensed IP product. And so we are never going to be rid of Dungeons and Dragons. It is too powerful. It's also like, if you think about how important experience points, levels, dungeons, they're all now saturated. They're in the very fiber of culture, and they're never going away. But that's fine. That's one gateway. There are other gateways, and what I wish is for very prominent creators to continue to do the work of pointing out the different areas that the spotlight doesn't usually reach.
And one thing that I would like to add, so for on-ramping into TTRPGs in general, I got a message a couple of months ago now from a librarian in Pittsburgh, and as a reminder, I'm in Germany, where she had a ton of one of my animal games, and she had a game night with the kids at the library playing their first TTRPG, and they were playing my game, which is just the coolest thing in the world. They had never played D&D before. They've heard of these games, but they wanted to play as little hedgehogs. And so it's all make-believe and storytelling. And so it's really wonderful that these kids got to play in not even just my world. They were playing in other worlds too later on in the program. But experiencing that level of play in something that is not as massive as D&D, and it's an indie game. All of the games in this program were indie games, and it was just very, very cool.
That is very awesome. That's the kind of feedback that you really want to get,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got photos and everything. I was just like, this is the coolest thing in the world.
Very cute, very cute. How old did you say the kids were? Like elementary school age or teenagers?
Definitely elementary school. I want to say that it was probably, I'm terrible at judging ages. Just looking at the photos, I would say that they were probably anywhere between 10 and 14 years old.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Tweens, perhaps.
Yeah, tweens.
Yeah. All right. I know we're coming up against our stopping point for a few of you, so I'm going to ask one of my ending questions here. What would you say is the measure of success for an indie TTRPG project? Maybe not an easy question, right?
No, yeah. I feel like there's 3 different things. There's personal fulfillment. As art, did you make a cool thing?
Yeah.
Great. Second of all, did you lose your house or your car, or did you go into debt making it? If no, great. I think those are my big 2 criteria. Did I go into debt for it, and then am I proud of the thing I made?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I like
if people play it, that's great.
I like how both of those are personal metrics, and not having to do with the opinion of others.
Yeah. I would say those, but then also random people in the wild talking about your game and not realizing that they're talking to the creator. That's happened to me a couple of times now, and it's just the coolest feeling. I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, for me it's I was gonna say, for me it's very similar to that, in that if I can see smiles and laughter coming from people playing my game, that's how I know that it was a success. And whether that's me running it for them or somebody else running it, that's pretty fascinating. Or specifically with sentience in general, we talk about your core stats are your emotions. And for when I ask someone, how do you feel? How does your character feel? They say, I've never thought about that before. That's when I know that what I've done as a project has been successful, because it's causing that it's requiring the players to think differently about who their characters are and how they're represented within the game.
Cool. So helping people to grow as players, to grow as people, I suppose, to grow, flex those empathic muscles a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I don't know. What do you? You're coming to the end of your project, Adrian. What do you think?
I mean, for myself, I just want to see it inspire creativity in others. Like if somebody, like my daughter drew a character from Koboa, and that like really made my day. Like I want to see like if it can make other people think about, well, especially with Koboa, if it can make other people think about South America in a way different than what is stereotyped, I would love that.
Yeah.
If people can see something quality made by South Americans and think, oh, okay, I don't like mentally have to subconsciously correlate South American product with these sorts of things. I would love that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say that you're never going to feel successful ever in the indie space, even if you are successful. And so those 50 people are awesome, and I'm so glad that they're out there. And one thing is that Americans never bring me into their crowdfunding, but all the Europeans do. For whatever reason, and so that's always this thing where I know I have an audience somewhere, and that's fine. But that you're always going to have a sense of unease. Am I doing things correctly? If I could only do this or that, then maybe I would. And you have to kind of let it go, and say there's those 50 people who know who I am, who play my games and think they're awesome, and that's amazing. And honestly, that's going to be your main success metric, because almost all of us here will take a giant stumble at some point, or we'll just get age out of doing what we're doing, or whatever. We'll have health difficulties or something, and then the 50 people are still there for us even when we get out of the hobby. Because otherwise, the hobby doesn't actually take care of you. The games don't actually take care of you. Other people do take care of you. And the games are just sort of entrance in a larger conversation.
So the success is the friends that we made along the way.
Unfortunately, but yes.
I do think it's another whole discussion beyond what you were just talking about, Evan, is how do you build a community for your either your brand or one of the products that you make as an independent. I think that fostering that community makes all the difference, because it might be 50 people, but if you can grow it to 300 people or grow it to 1,000 people, that's how you can start moving in the right direction.
Yes, and run your game. Like, don't be shy.
Yes.
Run your game for as many people as you can. You're going to learn so much about it. You're going to get better at it, and your game is awesome. Why don't you run it?
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything more fun as a GM than to get to like see a system that you made work, and see it affect people in a fun and fulfilling way. So, okay. Let's see where we're at here. Kimi and Anya, do you need to be taken off?
I'm okay.
I have a tiny wiggle room, but yeah.
Okay. Let's do this then. I'll ask my last question, then we'll decide, the rest of us, if we want to keep on going or not. Any advice? I guess maybe we already sort of covered this. Well, no, this is we can probably add a little bit. Any advice for prospective developers who want to do their own thing? I have got a bit of advice. Love doing it. Love doing it.
Oh yeah.
If
do something that interests you. Don't just follow the flow of what's popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, my big thing is
like.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'd say like something I really like to do with my games is come up with some sort of what is this game, just for myself or for anyone I work with. Like Koboa, this game is a display of South American excellence. This game is a diverse game. This game is this. I have another game where it's like, okay, this game is a critique of capitalist systems, etc. And then all your designs, all your input that you put into the game revolves around whatever that, I don't know if you want to get corporate vision statement or mission statements about.
Yeah, I've got two different ideas. The first thing is just keep writing and getting your content out there. The more eyes that you get on your content, the better scrutiny you're going to get. And the second bit would be have thick skin. know that you don't know everything, and if people are making suggestions on how things could be better, consider that. Like, it's not an assault against you, right? It's hey, how can we make this better? And lots of times, if you get your game out to some alpha readers or beta readers first, they might say, well, this mechanic doesn't really make sense. Have you thought about this? That's not an attack on you. That's someone else offering a way that it could be better, right? Now, you don't have to take that that bit of criticism. You might not act on it at all, but just don't let it impact you as a creator, because that's where social emotional stuff starts wearing on you, and you kind of have to be able to let that go. So that's really important as well.
I mean, and that's why you're doing playtesting too, to get that kind of feedback. You know, because you want that kind of critique. You want it to, because one of the big challenges I think with game design is, well, you can get very into, at least I can get very into the design aspect, and I sometimes forget what I'm trying to communicate to the player, right? So sometimes it's good to have that perspective, if a player will tell you, no, this doesn't make sense from my perspective. You know?
Yeah, and I've definitely had a couple of those moments where I'm just so in the zone on what I'm writing, and I've gotten this thing and it looks great, and then my players go, but why is that a thing? And I have to actually think about it and then change things and improve it so that it is something that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you want to evolve beyond just making your own independent games, and you want to move into freelance or getting involved with some of these second tier companies or whatnot, the more content that you have out there that they can look at, the better. That's how I got my job working with Star Trek Adventures, right? I was making content for the DMs Guild, and then started playing Star Trek and was posting my content. And the project managers saw me on a panel and said, hey, do you want to write something for us? And I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, absolutely. So just keep getting your stuff out there. Make sure it's good. Make sure it's edited, right? Make sure there's no spelling errors. And people do look at that stuff. And by people, I mean, like, product line managers and so on.
Yeah. I'm going to give the exact opposite advice, which is just make your bad, imperfect thing now and run it for people. And your bad, imperfect thing is fine. What your bad, imperfect thing, if you haven't done your bad, imperfect thing, you need to do it now. Do it now. Let's get it down on the paper, design it, lay it out, put it out there, run it for people. And that's when you then have to think, oh, an actual person, not me, will have to run this and or play it. And that gulf between the bad, shriveled thing that you throw out in the world and the state of play is where you build your iteration, your play testing. How do I get to that point where I really can hand this thing, no matter what form it's in, to someone who's not me, and I can walk away and have it run. And that's really, really, really important. Of course, I have students who are teaching game design, and the most important thing is that someone not themselves can sit down and run it autonomously and have a comparable experience to what they would want, to see at the table. So, and to be frank, then once you've gone through that process, you are ready for Al's stage of being noticed by a big company and being picked up. Because if you haven't had that experience of having that thing that doesn't work, that you then are bashing into making work somehow, and seeing how difficult game design is.
Yeah.
That's where you really need to start, because everybody could be a game designer. Very few people are good game designers. In fact, I would say there are many big name game designers who suck, and I can't name their names on this podcast, but they definitely have gone to a certain mid-range and haven't gone beyond it, and it's because they haven't challenged themselves. But at the same time, like, I can understand why you wouldn't want to challenge yourself. Challenging yourself is scary, and you can push yourself past into a realm where your game will not be profitable, it will not be played, it will not even work. And that's going to go through any ambitious production. So start small before you start big.
Guess who made that mistake?
Same. I think my advice is very much a teacher's answer. Also teacher. Ask questions. Like join as many, like especially if you're doing self-publishing, you do not have to reinvent the wheel. That's been invented by everyone on this panel and everyone a million times before. Like join groups. People are usually really great about kind of sharing the folk knowledge that is creating a TTRPG because it is sort of like an oral tradition at this point. There's starting to be classes about it, which is very exciting, but that's a very new phenomenon. And the only way any of us learned anything is by one, trying it and screwing it up, or by asking somebody who'd already done it and already screwed it up and having them share their wisdom with us. So just join, be kind, be humble, be curious, and people are very willing to share knowledge with you. And that's the number one thing. And it's so helpful and people are amazing.
Yeah.
And I do want to give a shout out to the UK Tabletop Industry Network. There's a Discord server, and it is phenomenal for if you want advice about mechanics, about like how does this read, or if you're looking for sensitivity readers, layout designers, things like that. Like there's so much available, and there are other groups and like online organizations, all of that can also fit that niche. That's just the one that I'm a part of.
Cool. Well,
another piece of advice I'd give is don't like. It feels weird at first, but just play your game with yourself. Like pretend you're 4 different people sitting around the table, and you will get through so many issues your game has so quickly, rather than try to organize with 4 people and like leave it for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And playtesting is so important. You find so many issues when you playtest. Like you can just throw an ash can out there and see how people do with it, but actually getting people to playtest with you or playtesting with yourself can be hugely beneficial.
And it builds that 50 people to maybe 55 people when you're sitting there at a con, and slowly build it like the grassroots way through like little con one-shots and stuff.
Yeah. I think what everyone should remember is that, you know, even if you don't have a background in game design, one of the first TTRPG ND designers was a guy named Gary Gygax. He didn't start with a company, you know, he just was helping to collate these rule sets for war games, you know, and everybody's got to start somewhere, I suppose, is the moral of that story.
I'd also say, like, you were designing RPGs when you were a 5-year-old, and you were like, you know, like, I shot you or I got you. Like, you already know how to do this.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. Why not? You know, YOLO. Is it lame to say that? Was it ever not lame to say that?
Carpe diem, seize the day.
There we go. Let's go with a carpe diem. I'm happier with that. Got a little Robin Williams, tie in there too. So, does somebody have to
I think so.
Okay. Well, that is cool. Thank you all. Let's. I wanted Al to give his outro, but that's okay. We'll do plugs real quick. Well, wait. Oh, hey Al.
Must have just disconnected.
Yeah, DC there for a second. Back just in time to say goodbye.
Yeah, the storms are here, by the way.
Okay.
Real bad. So I might only have a minute or two.
No, that's fair. Go ahead and give your outro, get your plug, and then we'll move on.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I'm Al Spader, GM Admiral on all the socials. I do write for Star Trek Adventures, but my 2 games that I wrote myself are Sentience, available on DriveThruRPG or theyellowhand.com. It's a conglomerate of creators that work together to produce content. And the other one is Once Upon the Storybook role-playing game. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Al. We will talk to you soon. All right. And Kimi.
Yes, my name is Kimi Hughes, she, her again. I'm Golden Lasso Girl on all socials because I was also a cosplayer and Wonder Woman was my thing. I also named my game company after it. So Golden Lasso Games is my game company. You can find it at goldenlassogames.com, including our games that we've made there. You can find me every week on the Happy Jacks RPG Advice Show, which is live at 6 p.m. ish Pacific time, depending on how, everyone has to get through traffic to get there. And then we have actual plays. You can find all our shows. We've been doing that since 2009 at happyjacks.org.
Thanks for being here, Kimmy. And Evan Torner.
Okay, I'm Evan Torner. You can find me. I guess I would love it. Into the game to the Golden Cobra Challenge. That's goldencobra.org. You can also find all past games for free there. So if you want to make $0, you can definitely submit. But also, you can just write your game over your lunch break and have fun with it, which is also great. You can also find my work at Analog Game Studies, at analoggamestudies.org. And a variety of different articles that we've curated over the last 12 years. And I will also say I wrote about Dungeons & Dragons in Rascal News. You can find my essay on combat in Dungeons & Dragons there. That's just one of many articles I've written on role-playing games.
Cool.
I'm in the textbook about role-playing games, I guess.
Nice. All right, well, thank you for being here. Anya?
Yeah, so I'm Anya, Lalion Publishing, Lalion Cosplay, everywhere on social media. I write all different kinds of fun games. I sell a lot of my games at conventions here in Europe. You can also get all of them on DriveThruRPG and my itch.io shop if you want the digital versions. And I can't wait to be able to talk about my next project because I'm really excited about it, but still gotta wait a little bit longer.
Cool. I'll look forward to hearing about it. All right,
Yeah.
and Adrian.
Yeah, I'm Adrian Mejia, Latin nerd on Blue. I'm pretty much just on Blue Sky these days. Latin nerd with one N. You can look us up at koboasetting.com as well if you're interested in our South American D&D/Pathfinder/Black Flag project. That's it.
Okay, and all of those, we'll be putting all those link trees and links in the show notes, so make sure to check those out. Thank you to all the guests for being here. This has been Round the Table on the new Indie Wave. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. Indie School.
Bye.